My girlfriend and I just moved into our new house. Honestly, it felt like a dream come true, the kind of place we'd been imagining for years. We even brought our cat Bella with us. She's the little rescue we got together. And for a while, everything felt perfect. Well, almost everything. The only thing that didn't sit right was the house on our right. It looked completely abandoned. The owner had started some renovations but never finished, leaving it in this half-done, empty state that already gave me an uneasy feeling. The way our houses are set up, there's this open space that leads to our back garden. Right next to it is the entrance to the abandoned house's backyard. There's no fence separating the two because the old one had been removed for a new installation that was never completed. So basically both backyards were wide open and anyone could walk straight through if they wanted to. Behind the abandoned house, there's another property separated by a proper fence. From what we could see, a few young guys lived there. Sometimes when we came home, we'd notice them cutting through the abandoned backyard just to get to the street in front. At first, we didn't think much of it. Maybe they knew the owner, maybe they had permission. But looking back now, I can't shake the feeling that we were already walking right into something we weren't supposed to see. Fast forward to our very first night in the new house, and I still remember how strange it all felt. My girlfriend and I were sitting in the back garden, just enjoying the space and the quiet, when I glanced up at the houses behind us, more out of curiosity than anything else. That's when I saw him. A man standing in a window, staring right at us. He wasn't hiding, wasn't peeking. He was just standing there, completely still, his face blank, and the room behind him dark. The shadows seemed to swallow him, making him look almost unreal. At first I thought maybe he was curious about his new neighbors, trying to figure out who we were. But half an hour passed and he didn't move. Didn't blink noticeably, just continued staring, and my chest tightened with a kind of fear I hadn't felt before. We finally decided to go inside, trying to shrug it off as nothing, just a weird coincidence. The next few days felt normal enough, work, unpacking, the usual settling in stuff. But then one night we went back out into the garden. The sky was dark and everything around us felt unnaturally quiet, the kind of silence where every small sound echoes. We were talking and laughing softly when we heard it, the sound of a wooden board moving. My heart skipped a beat. Before I could even react, 3 men were standing there staring at us. I asked, "Are you okay?" Mostly out of nervousness, knowing they probably wouldn't leave on their own. The youngest, maybe 29, carried a big bag and I couldn't even tell what was inside. Then he offered us some stolen washing up tablets. For a moment, I didn't know whether to laugh or freak out. I made a joke to break the tension, and he just smiled, said okay, and they left. What shook me most was how easily they had let themselves into our garden, as if they had every right. We went back inside, trying to tell ourselves it was a one-time thing, but soon it got worse. They started showing up more often, acting like they owned the place, lifting the old fence to walk through the abandoned yard next door. My girlfriend and I were both just 20, and the thought that they were deliberately trying to intimidate us, 2 young women alone, was terrifying. Nights became tense. Every noise made my stomach churn. Every shadow made me flinch. It felt like we weren't safe in our own home, like we were trapped in a nightmare that was only just beginning, and there was no telling what would happen next. One day, while I was cleaning the front room, 2 police officers suddenly came around the side of our house and went straight into the abandoned garden. They lifted up the old fence, looked around for a few minutes, and then left without saying a word. I thought it was strange, but tried to shrug it off and keep going with my day, assuming maybe the people next door were just causing trouble again. A few days later, there was a knock at our door, and the police were there. They explained that the house behind us was now vacant. The men who had been hanging around our garden were kicked out for antisocial behavior, not just toward us, but apparently with other neighbors too. Honestly, we felt a huge relief. Even though they hadn't physically harmed us, at least now there was no chance for things to get worse. Life started to feel a little more normal, and we kept settling into the house. Then one day, while I was in the bath, I heard a loud, sudden bang outside. Heart racing, I quickly got dressed and ran to find my girlfriend. I found her at the spare bedroom window, filming the garden that used to belong to the abandoned house. I asked her what was happening, but she shushed me. After a tense moment, she explained that a man we had never seen before was pointing up at our bedroom window. When he realized she saw him, he sprinted full speed toward our house. On the way past, he tried our door handle, then ran back into the garden, threw the broken fence up, and started pounding on all the windows of the empty house. We called the police immediately. They arrived, watched the footage, took statements, and left. But we were left shaken. Why would he try our door, then go break into that house? What was he planning, and what if he came back? A few nights later, we were lying in bed when we started hearing whistling. Not just any whistling, the kind men use to harass women. I glanced at the clock. It was 2:16 a.m. My heart started racing. We stayed completely quiet, listening, when suddenly there was a soft tapping on our window. Terrified, we jumped up and checked the cameras, but nothing had recorded. It was like whoever it was had vanished into thin air. The noises stopped, but that didn't make us feel safe. We were too scared to sleep, so the next day we went to my mom's house and stayed the night just to feel normal again. When we came back the following morning, we noticed something chilling. Our Ring doorbell had been removed and was lying on the floor. The SD card was gone. Someone had clearly come back, and we knew exactly who it was. There was no one else who would do something like that. We called the police again, and this time the woman on the line was honest with us. She told us to make sure every door and window stayed locked, and she even said that the camera being removed could be a sign that they were planning something. That terrified us even more. From then on, the whistling, the banging, the tapping, and all the attempts to get back into the house continued for weeks. We filed multiple police reports, but they never tried our door again. Still, every time we walked past that empty backyard, my stomach dropped. We kept hoping it was over, but deep down, we knew this nightmare wasn't finished, and that the people who had haunted us weren't done watching us, waiting, testing, seeing how far they could go. But 3 weeks later, while we were in bed watching funny clips from our camera, we checked the live feed, and that's when we saw him. A man standing outside, wearing a black mask over his mouth and nose, hood pulled up, arms stretched wide like he was some twisted version of Jesus on the cross. He tilted his head and stared straight up at our bedroom window, and for a moment, we just froze. At the time, the camera had been moved inside, so nothing was recorded, and in our shock, we didn't even think to screen record it. Then he spoke, but we couldn't hear a word. Just the way his body moved, the way he paused, made it feel like he was mocking us. Slowly he turned and walked to the other side of the street, standing there for 30 minutes, just staring at our house like it belonged to him. We called the police again, desperate, but they told us that staring at someone's property isn't illegal and dismissed the whole thing. Even when we told them he had been on our lawn, they acted like we were overreacting. After that, sleep became impossible. Every small sound outside made our hearts pound. Even normal noises, cars, the wind, a cat in the alley, felt like a threat, and we lived in constant fear, waiting for the moment he might come back. Then one night, at exactly 2:52 a.m., we got a notification on our phone. My heart sank instantly. I woke my girlfriend and whispered, "Someone's outside, I just know it. Please check the camera." She grabbed her phone and there they were. 2 masked men creeping around the side of our house, flashlights cutting through the dark, shining straight into our windows. My stomach dropped when I saw him. The same man who had been haunting us before, holding what looked like a crowbar. Why us? What were they planning? For days after that, he would stand across the street, pointing, waving, shouting things we couldn't always hear, staring at us with that blank, chilling expression. Every time we looked, he was there, just watching. It was terrifying. It meant to break us down, and it almost did. We kept calling the police, reporting everything, but no real action came. The harassment never stopped. Every night felt unsafe. Every sound outside made our blood run cold, and the sense of being hunted in our own home never left us. We've got cameras now, and we record everything, but honestly, we still feel powerless. Just earlier today, he showed up again, standing outside, staring straight up at us like nothing had changed. We managed to catch it all on video, and watching it back still makes our hearts pound. It's terrifying knowing he can just appear like that, and we have no idea what he might do next. We'll keep everyone updated if anything else happens, but for now, all we can do is stay alert, keep the doors locked, and hope this nightmare doesn't get worse. Okay, so first, let me just say, I'm not crazy. I know how this is gonna sound. Paranoid, maybe even a little unhinged. But I promise, everything I'm about to tell you really happened. It all started with a face. Actually, not just one face, but a bunch of faces that all looked just slightly wrong. 3 months ago, I broke up with my ex, Caleb. We'd been together for almost 2 years, and honestly, the breakup should have happened way sooner. Caleb wasn't violent or anything. He'd never hurt me, but he was controlling. Not in the obvious way, not yelling or anything, but in that quiet, calculating way that gets under your skin. He'd do stuff like check when I was on my phone, quiz me about what I'd done that day, just to see if I'd answer the same way twice. It was exhausting, and I finally snapped. After I left him, I changed my number, deleted my social media, and even moved apartments. I thought I was safe. I really thought I was in the clear. Then there was the barista. It was a random Tuesday morning, and I stopped by this tiny coffee shop near my new apartment. I'd only been there once or twice before, so nothing felt familiar. I walked up to the counter, and this girl, maybe my age, smiled at me, but something about that smile, it made me pause. She tilted her head and said, "Good morning, sunshine." I froze. That was Caleb's nickname for me. Not like a normal nickname, but the sarcastic kind he'd use when I was upset, like, "What's wrong, sunshine?" He loved pushing my buttons. I tried to shake it off. Maybe it was just a coincidence. But then it happened again. A few days later, I took a rideshare to work. The driver was older, maybe in his 50s. Not the guy I usually got. He kept glancing in the rearview mirror like he was trying to figure me out. Then casually he asked, "Ever figure out what you're running from?" I blinked. I said, "What?" He just chuckled and shook his head like we shared some secret. But I knew that voice. Caleb said the exact same words once, leaning in all serious when I told him I needed space to think. Two strangers, two separate places, and the same words, said the same way. My stomach dropped. It was impossible. I couldn't stop thinking. How could this be happening? It kept happening. A woman at the grocery store brushed past me and whispered, "You don't get to just disappear." I froze. Then a guy walking by on the street said, "Still wearing your hair like that," just as casually as if he'd known me for years. Another time, someone who worked in my building murmured, "You always like this song," while humming the exact tune Caleb used to play during our argument. It wasn't their faces that freaked me out. It was the way they looked at me like they knew every little thing about me, or at least thought they did. Different faces, different people, but the same knowing, heavy stare in their eyes. I started questioning my sanity. I mean, what else could explain this? Out of desperation, I did something I didn't want to admit. I reached out to Caleb indirectly. I sent a message to his sister, asking her to tell him to stop. I convinced myself maybe he had hired someone, maybe he was stalking me, manipulating people, trying to get to me through strangers. But then she texted back, "I don't know what you're talking about. Caleb's in rehab. He's been there 6 weeks with no phone." I didn't believe it. I thought she was covering for him. That is, until I saw a photo she posted on Facebook a week later. Caleb looked pale, sunken, holding one of those tiny one-day sober chips. It couldn't be him. Not directly. And yet the feeling didn't leave me. The strangers, whoever they were, knew things they shouldn't. Things only he should have known. One night, I stayed late at work because I didn't want to go home. My apartment just didn't feel safe anymore. Not that anything had happened inside, but being alone there made my skin crawl. Around 10, I finally left. The walk home usually took 10 minutes, and I kept my head down, headphones in, but no music. I learned to do that so I could still hear if someone was following me. When I turned onto my block, I saw someone sitting on the stoop across from my building. A young guy, hoodie up, head down. I almost ignored him until he spoke. "Cold out tonight, huh? Sunshine?" I froze. He didn't look at me. Just stared at the sidewalk like it was a page in a book. He kept walking, slow, silent, my heart hammering. When I got inside, I locked every bolt, sat on the couch for hours, listening to nothing, trying to tell myself I was imagining things. I finally fell asleep. The next morning, I woke to my doormat flipped over. Not huge, right? Except I live alone, and my door is on the top floor. You don't just accidentally pass it. Underneath, scribbled in pen, were the words, "You can change your face too if you want, but I'll still recognize you." My stomach dropped. I couldn't understand it. I threw up. I didn't know who wrote it. I didn't know how they knew. And I couldn't shake the feeling I were being watched. Even now. That day I just couldn't stay in my apartment, so I booked a hotel for the weekend. I didn't even pack anything. I couldn't. Just grabbing clothes felt wrong, like someone might see me. I needed to be somewhere crowded. Somewhere I could feel invisible. The clerk gave me a room on the 4th floor. Small, quiet, kind of stuffy, but for the first time in weeks it felt safe. Until around 2 in the morning, when there were 3 slow knocks on my door. I froze, my heart racing, listening. They knocked again. I slowly crept to the peephole, and what I saw made my blood run cold. A woman, maybe in her 40s, just standing there, staring straight at the door. Her face was blank, expressionless. She didn't say a word. I didn't move. Eventually, she left. I couldn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I asked the front desk if anyone had come by. They said no one should have been up there that late. Every room on my floor was empty. That's when it hit me. These weren't random people. Someone was feeding them details, phrases Caleb used, things only he would know. But if it wasn't Caleb, then who? And why? My stomach turned as I thought about him in rehab, obsessed with control, obsessed with making sure I'd never fully disappear. He didn't need to do it himself, he just needed to make sure someone else would. So I started digging, trying to make sense of everything, and one memory hit me hard. A conversation from months before the breakup. Caleb was talking about some forum he'd been on. He made it sound harmless, like a place for productivity or self-improvement. I can't remember the name, and honestly, I don't think he ever told me. But looking back now, it was exactly the kind of creepy, cultish roleplay stuff that makes your skin crawl, and suddenly it clicked. Someone, probably him, had been using that to manipulate reality around me. He wasn't stalking me the usual way. No, it was smarter, scarier. He had people repeating his words, mimicking his patterns, turning strangers into extensions of him. Even though he was out of my life, he was everywhere, always there in the back of my mind. It was like psychological graffiti. He'd sprayed himself onto the world so I'd never feel safe, never trust what I saw, never stop noticing him. It wasn't about being watched, it was about making sure I was always looking, always aware, haunted. I moved again, vanished from social media, even dyed my hair. I told my friends not to tell anyone where I was, and for a while it worked. Until last week. I was walking home from the bookstore when a woman passed me on the street and said, "Still hiding behind books, sunshine." She didn't stop, didn't even glance at me, just kept walking like she knew exactly who I was. And my stomach dropped. I don't think this is ever gonna stop. Maybe he paid some twisted underground service to do this for a whole year, who knows? Maybe he made it public, turned it into some sick game. Who can scare Sunshine the most? Who can get the closest without even touching me? I can't trust anyone's face anymore. Every stranger feels like a threat. The paranoia is eating me alive, gnawing at my thoughts, and I don't know how much longer I can keep pretending I'm okay when every shadow, every glance feels like him. My family isn't really the traveling type, so everyone was kind of shocked when my aunt suggested a trip to one of Michigan's Great Lakes. We all agreed though, thinking it would be fun to make some new memories together. My cousin found this huge Airbnb that somehow fit all 18 of us, which honestly felt like a miracle for the price. The house sat right on the beach, with these incredible lake views that went on forever, almost like looking at the ocean. Most of us took rooms in the main house, but because we were so many, a few of us had to stay in a second building right behind it, a 2-story garage with bedrooms upstairs. My 3 cousins and I ended up there. At first, we didn't think much of it. We spent the day soaking in the hot tub, lounging on the beach, just enjoying the scenery. But that night, when we actually went into the garage, things felt off. The place was old, clearly neglected. The bathrooms were carpeted and smelled like mold, the bed linens were stained, and the door had a latch that barely worked. You could tell the cleaners had focused on the main house and completely ignored this place. My cousins were grossed out and refused to sleep on the beds without washing the sheets first, so I suggested we just do laundry. The machines were tiny, so we could only wash 1 set of sheets at a time, which meant we'd be up late for sure. We hung out upstairs, waiting for the first load to finish. My cousin Maria kept complaining about how we always got stuck with the worst part of the place. And as she talked, this uneasy feeling started creeping over me, like something bad was about to happen. It was one of those rare gut instincts I get, the kind that usually ends in a nightmare. Or worse. I warned my cousins to stay alert and they listened, especially since we'd all been through a break-in before, back when we lived in Detroit. Around midnight, the bell downstairs dinged, telling me the first load was done. I went down alone, swapped the wet sheets into the dryer, and carried the warm, clean smell back upstairs. When my cousins saw how clean everything was, they wanted their beds washed too, so I kept going up and down between cycles. By the time we finally finished at around 2:37 a.m., we were exhausted. We made the beds, flopped onto them, and barely had the energy to stay awake. But even as we drifted off, that same uneasy feeling lingered in the back of my mind, whispering that this night wasn't over yet. My cousin Nikki insisted we leave the light on, and while everyone else fell asleep almost instantly, I stayed up scrolling through schoolwork on my phone, my senses on high alert. Ever since that break-in back home, I've been a light sleeper, hyper-aware of every creak and shadow, even half asleep. Then, around 3:00 a.m., a loud bang slammed against the garage door, like someone had thrown their full weight into it. I jolted upright, heart pounding, but my cousins didn't stir. I tried convincing myself it was just the wind, though the noise was far too heavy, far too solid for that. I stayed quiet, hoping it wouldn't happen again, and tried to drift back to sleep, but then it came. Another deafening crash, shaking the garage door like the building itself was trembling. My blood ran cold as I watched the lamplit room flicker from the vibration, my cousins still motionless, unaware. No animal, no gust of wind could make that sound. 20 minutes later, a third boom rocked the garage, and this time, two of my cousins shot upright in their beds. I asked them if they'd heard it, already knowing the answer. Nikki whispered, panicked, "What was that?" My voice trembled as I replied, "I don't know, but this is the third time. There's no way wind could make a sound like that." The tension was suffocating, and for the first time we all realized the garage wasn't just creepy. It felt alive, like it was watching us. Nikki suggested we text her mom, my aunt, and we did, shaking with nerves as we waited for a reply. It was 4:11 a.m. when she finally answered. Her words quick and panicked, realizing something was seriously wrong. She woke my uncle, who ran outside to check the property. We stayed huddled upstairs, hearts pounding, too scared to move, until we heard urgent knocking. It was my uncle at the door, and when we opened it, we saw him standing there with my dad and a few of our older male cousins. That's when it hit me. This was serious. No wind, no prankster, nothing explained what was happening. My uncle told us to grab our things and move to the main house immediately. Then he said there was someone still on the property, and that's when my stomach dropped. I shoved everything into my suitcase and we sprinted out of the garage. Once inside the main house, most of the family was awake now, drawn by the noise and chaos. We all sat in the living room trying to make sense of it. I told them about the first two loud crashes, and my cousins confirmed the third. My aunt explained that she had followed my uncle outside and he shouted, "Hey!" at someone behind the garage. At that exact moment, the door to the main house slammed shut with a force no wind could have caused. Terrified that someone might have slipped inside, she ran to wake my dad and cousins. After a thorough search, nobody else was found inside, but the feeling of being watched didn't go away, not for a second. Then my uncle described what he saw, and it sent chills down my spine. A man stood behind the garage, not hiding, not moving, just staring like he wanted to be seen. When my uncle called out, he didn't flinch. He slowly walked away and vanished, not into shadows, but into thin air. No leaves, no footsteps, nothing. My uncle isn't the type to lie. He's serious and logical, which made it even scarier. My brothers found two jester cards, one in the main house, one in the garage. The garage one looked twisted, demonic, like mocking us. One cousin said jesters symbolized mockery, and all the loud crashes at 3 a.m., the so-called devil's hour, felt like a taunt. My uncle checked for footprints. Only ours were there. Another cousin drove down the road. No one. It felt like we were trapped in a game designed to terrify us. That day, no one went back to the garage. We all crammed into the main house, sleeping on floors, couches, anywhere we could fit. My mom even gave up her bed so we could rest more comfortably, but the second night was worse. She slept on a couch by the big windows and woke around 4:00, i.e., to footsteps on the porch. She didn't dare open her eyes, terrified of seeing someone staring in. Then came the rattling at the basement door. It had a weak lock, and my brothers and male cousins were asleep down there. The door shook like someone was trying to break in. My mom raced to the beachside entrance, heart pounding, but no one was there, and the boys were still asleep. That night felt endless, and though we had planned to stay until Tuesday, we packed up and left on Monday. The tension, the fear, it was too much, like the house itself was warning us to run. On the way home, we couldn't stop talking about everything that had happened. My mom got even more worried when she found out I had been going downstairs alone during the laundry. She suggested maybe someone had been watching me, thinking I was alone in the garage, and the timing lined up way too perfectly with the loud banging. Theories started flying. Some of us guessed it could have been a neighbor trying to scare us off, but others whispered that it felt completely paranormal, especially because of the twisted jester cards. My aunt said a normal person would have bolted when my uncle called out, but this man didn't move. He just stared and then vanished without a trace. We tried contacting the Airbnb host, who promised to check the camera above the garage, but we never heard back. That silence made us wonder even more. Did she know him? Was it someone local or something we couldn't explain at all? It's the kind of mystery that sticks with you, creeping into your mind every time you think about it. When we first arrived, my sister and cousin had gone for a walk along the beach and noticed a woman next door. She didn't smile or wave, didn't even acknowledge them politely, just stared with this cold, unfriendly gaze that sent a shiver down their spines. The house was isolated, miles from anywhere, and we understood that constant Airbnb guests could annoy locals, but we were careful, respectful, trying not to bother anyone. Still, There was something about the way she watched them, the way her eyes seemed to pierce right through, that felt wrong. It wasn't just curiosity, it was judgment. Almost like she knew something we didn't. We didn't deserve it, and deep down, that feeling of being silently targeted stayed with us the whole trip. Every glance over the shoulder, every creak of the floor made us wonder if she, or someone, was watching, waiting for the right moment to make herself known, and that thought refused to leave our minds. It made the beach feel colder, the house feel smaller, and the nights far longer than they should have been. This was our first family trip, and honestly, we hoped it wouldn't be our last, even after everything we went through. The fear, the unexplained sounds, the shadowy figure. It all left a mark that none of us will ever forget, but it also reminded us how important family is when the world feels unpredictable and even a little haunted. Have you ever had an experience that made you question what's real? I'd love to hear your stories, so drop a comment below and share them with us. If you want more heart-pounding, true horror stories that'll keep you up at night, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a spine-chilling tale from our channel. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.